If there's one key message you'd like people to hear today, what would it be?
Well, I would say it is that we as a society cannot fail on implementing regenerative agriculture, because that's our ecological income, I feel. So it's really something that matters enormously. And it's not only about the food, it's also about our environment. And actually, I feel that we're currently, when it comes to climate and biodiversity, more looking at what we lose and what our cost items are, and not so much on the revenue. And I'm sure that Regen Ag is able to manage this in a way it has to be. So we should start to swap from just looking at cost into what's our revenue, and also drive that one.
You're talking about ecological income and revenue here. Could you expand on that?
Yeah, so if you look at the state of our planet, or let's call it differently, the biomass productivity of our Earth is pretty much linked to our cost items. So if you see what we're using as a society, it's actually everything biomass based.
So when you say using, you mean everything we consume, products, energy, everything.
And let's, for example, look into concrete. You could say, okay, stones. But no, because when you sit in front of that rock, how do you actually work it? You need biomass. You need something to heat it. That's either oil, gas, coal, wood, and so on. And that's all biomass. So people don't actually make the link of oil, gas, coal, plastics, petrochemicals, medication, wood, any fiber that you could think of, textile, food, that this is all biomass based. And even at concrete and iron, you couldn't work without biomass. So pretty much all we use is biomass based. And in history of Earth, compared to the peaks in biomass productivity, we have reached a level of less than 50%, constantly declining. And when that's what we use, then that's our ecological income.
Okay, so you say productivity, so the amount, let's say, each year that the Earth is producing biomass, and how much we actually use.
Yeah, if that's in balance, we're fine.
Yeah.
Then there's no excess climate emissions, because you produce as much as you use, which puts it back in balance. Right now, farmers are just looking at the biomass productivity of the sellable yield, not of the entire plant productivity. And the slash in biomass productivity we have seen is mainly related to deforestation. And even when you look at latest climate calculations, that's still a large chunk, land use change and deforestation, obviously. And what we actually want to do is to create the awareness of the farmers that there's more than just a sellable yield, that you really should grow plants on every meter square on your farm every day to maximize its productivity. And that's what Regen Ag can do.
Okay, so it's not just about producing the sellable crop, it's about producing biomass in every possible form.
Yeah, and I would even call that ecosystem services. You can then, I see it on my farm when I look back. So with the biomass increase, with the more plant growth, you have also the biodiversity, the soil, everything coming back. So it's positively linked. So in many cases, we see extensification as a solution. And my personal belief is that that's a mistake. We need to have intense productivity on the fields, but we need to focus on the entire thing and then the ecosystem to have the positive effects more than the negative ones. And we can do that. So I can clearly demonstrate on my farm that with Regen Ag approaches, this is possible.
Okay.
But it's more complex than just doing a bit of no-till or doing a bit of cover crops. When it comes to outcomes, you need to define what they are. And there's physics, but then there's also finding an agreement amongst the stakeholders that are having to drive this. What we identified is the stakeholders to drive this are the farmers, but it's also the industry. And then even more, it's all the NGOs that are there and trying to make a living out of it by sometimes objecting or at least checking that things are working well. And then obviously it's always also the internal view of whatever company is, that's the employees. So what we're trying to do is create AgriPurpose, which is a purpose venture. So what it does is it splits the capital rights from the voting rights. So the voting rights you would have in the General Assembly, the ones that decide what happens on a company. And we try to unite in those 4 key stakeholder groups to then define with them which outcomes should be actually monitored and to find a way to define them, but to measure and validate them and to improve them. And I think something neutral like this, and we're looking there into just 4 buckets. So we look at biomass productivity overall. We look at soil cover overall. We look at soil health, and that includes for us the soil organic carbon. So it's the bulk density plus the SOC percentages, but also pH and macronutrients, because long-term sequestration only happens when those are in balance too. And then last is the efficiency. So what's the yields you have produced? And there we only look into sellable yields. Meaning, if you produce corn on your fields that you use to feed your cows, we don't count it in because that's not something you sell. So sellable yields, that can be any crop. It can be milk, wool, meat, whatsoever, eggs. And then the inputs you have used for that. And we just look at 6 items. So it's fuel, it's energy, it's nutrients used. So that can be fodder purchased or sold, mineral fertilizer purchased or sold, or actually organics brought to the farm or taken from the farm. Always just what matters to us is the nutrients inside. Water, the crop protection use. We look at money because the stuff is value priced. So it's actually, if you use less money, you have used less. It's harder to do it anyway, with any other stuff. And then it's the animal load, because if it's too low, it starts to harm soils. And if it's too high, it starts to create excess emissions. And that's pretty much it. So we try to validate on this one.
Okay, so sorry, because there's so much information here. Yeah. I want to make sure that everyone stays on board, including myself.
Okay.
I'd like to think that I'm in a good position to do these interviews, not because I am knowledgeable about these topics, but because I'm not. Okay. And so I can ask the silly questions and make sure that everyone stays on board with me. Yeah. So you're trying to define the outcomes, that we could build an outcome-based system on.
Exactly.
And here you were just citing all of the different metrics or the different things that you look at to define outcomes. And so let's go through them again really quickly. So you talked about net primary productivity.
Yeah, it's the biomass productivity. So it's linked. It's not exactly the primary productivity. It's linked to the net primary productivity. And what we know is that one is linked a lot to soil health. So actually, the more net primary productivity you have, the more soil organic carbon you have, the healthier your soil. And then you have this positive feedback loop finally. Mm-hmm. So the intention is first maximize net primary productivity, then protect this. So the protect is the soil cover. Because what you should try to avoid is that your soil overheats more than 40 degrees. For that, it needs to be covered. Never any dark part of the soil being exposed to the sun. Then it actually should not be exposed to water and wind erosion. And that's the cover. So the more time of the year it's covered, the better. And it doesn't count when you have planted something. The thing is when is actually there some green growing or some structures remaining from plants like that you can see with satellite. So these are the first 2 that we check.
So again, biomass, which is
linked to net primary productivity
and soil cover. And that gives you an indicator. You get certain results.
Yes. So how we do it is we compare those values that the farm achieves with the neighborhood. So we do that automatically.
And
then, anywhere on the planet
with satellite data.
Yeah. And that's the cool bit, is when you compare the farm with its surroundings, it's actually always context specific. So there the context specific comes into the outcome based. And then it's the continuous improvement, because we want those numbers to be improving against the region. And think of it like algebra, like a formula kind of thing. And when you have things on both sides of the equation, they usually are... You can just take them apart, take them away. So weather and stuff is all the same. So many things are kind of same farm to the region. So you're actually kind of unraveling the fog through this. And what we're then doing is we're always asking the farmer when he's underperforming or overperforming against the region, what he did. And the cool bit is with satellite data, you can look backwards 7-8 years now. Meaning we can learn from the last 7-8 years what he did.
Okay.
And then what went well and what didn't. And then you get the right focus to start where you need to start first to improve, to actually maximize the outcomes.
Yes.
So it's not only a measure, it's also a very nice toolkit to focus and optimize.
Yeah.
And then we go and measure the soil carbon.
Soil carbon?
So that's soil sampling.
And so how does that work?
So with the satellite, we look at the variation of your soil over the last 7 years. And then through this, we go and sample at the right places. Not most do today that it's optimized for just soil carbon, but we know it's more. So pH is as important for long-term sequestration as macronutrients. So we want it to be balanced. So we sample where there's most differences. And then that goes to the lab, you get a result, and with an AI, we can then distribute it at 10 by 10 meter.
Okay, is that something easy to do for farmers, to take those samples and to send them to the lab? Or?
Yeah, no.
Yeah?
No, we don't want farmers to take it. Yeah. The reason being is we have seen that there is the potential to trick the system.
Yeah.
So we don't want them to know exactly where the sampling happens, for a good reason. So it should be external providers doing that, because it's finally, hopefully, related to money. And then you need to have some safeguards in place.
Okay.
So we have a sampler doing that. It goes to the lab with the result and an AI. You get the high resolution soil data. Usually see that this can help with fertilization, or as I do it, an optimization of the cover crops. So I make an example. When I see that I lack somewhere in phosphorus, usually there's enough. It's just no plant available. So what I do is I focus with the cover crops on buckwheat, because that kind of frees up phosphorus. We know that. So I put in the mix additional buckwheat when I know it's a problem there. Or when it's potassium, I put ceradella. So it's like the same, just for the other nutrients. So you can either do precision farming with all the technology, or you use nature to then balance the field. And you need to see and know that, even on small fields like mine, like 2 hectares, because there's sometimes huge differences. And then when you have the average, it's like having one arm in cold and one arm in hot water. You're just doing the wrong thing everywhere. So we're trying to actually get this addressed. That's what it does. So we see that farmers are moving quicker, and it saves them about 100 euros per hectare per year. So it's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, yeah. But so you need a lot of different samples to be able for the model to give you precise results?
Yeah, we need 3 per as a minimum. So small fields, that's more, but we only go for 1/3 of the fields, because with the first step, we identify which soils are the least performing. And then usually you also there have the right focus. So you start implementing where you have to do it first.
So the satellite data tells you where you have the biggest problems with your soils.
Where I have the biggest problems in kind of which fields.
Yeah.
And there I do the most intense sampling. So again, it's the focus for the optimization.
Yeah.
And then, the last bit is when you're maximizing net primary productivity, protect what you have produced, improve the soil health, then it's actually how efficiently have you achieved this. And there we look into the yields, but only the sold yields, because that's a better link to what are the calories you have produced for human consumption. It's not perfect, because you still can combine, let's say, corn or soy, and it goes into fodder. But it reduces already all the intra-farm kind of processes. So let's say you do corn silage and then you feed it to the cows. Again, we do not care about this. We only care then about the milk, the meat, the animals you have produced.
Yes. Okay.
And I think that's a better link to what's the efficiency in terms of human food production. And then we just check what have been the inputs that came from somewhere else to achieve all this.
Okay.
And that we want to minimize.
Yeah.
So we want to maximize all the rest, maximize the yield, and minimize the inputs. In our scheme is as long as you are actually improving on those 4 items, you're in the scheme.
Mm-hmm.
You can have 1 year down performance, okay? Because that can always happen. 1 step back to take 2 steps ahead. If you have 2 years, you need to book a consulting and establish an action plan on your farm to stay in the scheme. That's kind of how we're going to do it as AgriPurpose.